EMP was first theorized by Nobel Prize winning physicist by the name of Compton, and it's called the Compton effect, for which he received the prize in 1927. During the nuclear testing of the 40s and 50s, there was some detection at ground level bursts of a minor EMP overload. Finally, in 1961, I believe, it might be 62, we decided, hey, boys and their toys, sooner or later we gotta try it. We decided to pop a nuke in space and see what would happen. So they launched from Johnson Island in the Pacific. They did a vertical launch, and it's like, okay, we're gonna see if we get any EMP off of this. And the scientific team set up their machines to test. They were off on their calibration by a full magnitude, meaning the EMP burst that hit was 10 times higher than what they thought was going to hit, pegged off all their machines. Plus, it blew out part of the power grid in the Hawaiian Islands 500 miles away. And so they were like, holy crap, what is this? Of course, the Soviets then run a test called Soviet test 184, where, being typical of the Soviets, it's like, well, where are we going to blow this off? Let's do it over Kazakhstan. So, nothing like being part of the Soviet Empire. And they had a power station that the underground cables from several hundred miles out fed the overload into the power station and blew the power station out. And if you've ever seen a 1962 Soviet car, it looks like a 1950 DeSoto, overbuilt to the extreme, and their ignition systems on those cars were blown out. What happens is when you detonate above the atmosphere, the gamma ray burst coming off of the bomb in the first millionth of a second starts hitting upper atmosphere molecules, breaking off electrons, which essentially spits out a static electric discharge that cascades down because the Earth is a giant magnet. And within the first second, it kind of cascades down, actually microsecond, and strikes the Earth's surface. Everything of metal that's conductive picks up this overload and feeds it through the system. Actually, the most vulnerable thing is not necessarily our power generators or our cell phones. I was at a conference several years ago where they were pointing out where we're really going to be screwed is all of the high-power transmission lines. There's hundreds of thousands of miles of those things. They're going to be giant antennas sucking in the electrical overload, and if you do a little math of figuring out the diameter of the cable and how many meters between each pylon and how much of an overload is going to hit very quickly, they're gone. And at the Impact Conference, the first one up in Buffalo, I saw they did some high-speed video of hitting a power line with this type of overload. And just like with the Compton effect in 1859, the power lines exploded. They just exploded off of their ceramic insulators. Next time you're driving down the road and you pass underneath one of these high-tension lines, you know, from aluminum towers, it goes back to the 20s and 30s, get out and stand under it for a moment. You can hear it. When that thing's really pumping the juice. In fact, take along a big fluorescent light bulb and freak out your neighbors by holding it up. It will illuminate. It's really kind of cool at night because then you go vroom, vroom. It's just... there's the problem. In 1990 or 91, I was in grad school at Purdue in Indiana, central Indiana. We got hit by what they call the once in 500-year ice storm. It took down the whole power grid of central Indiana for up to a month in some areas. Lafayette, Indiana, our lifeboat was the university, which had its own power station. I moved into my mentor's office with my dog. All right, took showers in the gym. Everything was gone, everything was down. And That filtered into the book because within several days, the power trucks needed National Guard escorts. We're talking a university town, which maybe makes it even scarier. You just had too many PhDs wandering around, or just a little too weird. It's also, have you ever seen the Monty Python routine of philosophers at a soccer game? You know what I mean. How many of you ever seen that? I just love that. Debating whether the ball exists or not. They were trying to debate whether they were freezing to death or not. But they needed National Guard. And as the previous gentleman was talking about, I remember Walmart bought in an entire truckload of generators, sold them in the parking lot, but you had to sign an additional form that this was a no return buy. And they said, we'll put a little gas in it, we'll fire this up right here so you can see that it works. But when you sign for this, there's no return. And I'm telling that story because they sold out within a couple of hours. And it was Walmart or Kmart. It was a Kmart, I think, right off of Lindbergh Street. Right? Are you familiar with Purdue? No, I'm not that old. This is 91. 91. No, I didn't go to graduate school in 59. I was getting beaten up by nuns in 1959. To this day, I have a thing about a girl wearing black and hitting me with a ruler. I'm sorry, everybody has their kink, Again, I think of Monty Python line from Holy Grail at Castle Anthrax, but I'm not going to say it. He said it, I think. Well, the funny part of that story, but then I want to get serious on that, was, do you know one guy actually tried to return the generator a week later? And he brought it back, and to try and make it look dramatic, he had beaten the thing into a pulp with a sledgehammer and said, "It came out of the box this way." And they're just like, they go through the forms, and they find, "Sir, you signed that this thing was functional and perfectly okay. Screw you, you're stuck." So the guy had beaten to death his own generator. When the power guys came to start reconnecting, it was surreal. I mean, I understood how all this worked, and I see, oh, thank God they're back. And you go out with gifts and bribes and coffee, and you try to be super friendly, and they're just, but the guy said, "Sir, we're just repairing obvious damage, but we don't even have any current coming in yet from the high transmission lines. So we're just trying to repair what we see doesn't work." But they needed National Guardsmen. The one guy said, he said, your coffee, cookies, and that $50 bill wrapped around. He said, about 2 blocks over, we pulled into this little cul-de-sac, and I heard this, "Sir, could you come here for a minute, please?" And he said he walked up to the house, and the woman was without clothes, even though it was cold, and she was glad to see him. And she made him an offer he had to refuse because he was a good married man, just to put the electricity back on. But the whole thing was, even in that university town, people did not understand how the grid worked. And so they're just staring at the light bulbs, how come they're not back on? And then finally, they were at the point of going crazy after 1 week. There were sections of Indiana that were down for a month. I remember we got power back in my neighborhood after 11 days.
Why did they need the National Guard?
Because the trucks were actually being blocked and attacked by the professors. Yes. They pull into a road and people will pull a car out and block the truck and say, "You're not getting out of here until you turn the flipping lights back on." So we're not talking about an out-of-control major, okay, I'll pick on a city. Detroit is a pretty screwed up city. We're talking about a university town where people were starting to flip out after a week. That they needed National Guardsmen on the trucks to convey some sort of, don't mess with these guys.
Maybe irrational.
Yes. Don't we think things are going to get irrational? And it struck me just one other observation. I'm rambling a bit. When I was going up to Langley to talk a couple of years ago, it was when the second humongous snowstorm of the winter really trashed Washington. I loved that first one. It was just like, just shut it all down for 6 months. Things will get better, for us. As I got out, just as the storm was starting, and from up by Langley, all the way back to darn near here, I was passing convoy after convoy after convoy of 50, 60, 70 power trucks coming from as far away as Florida and Alabama to go to Washington, D.C., to save Washington from itself because of a blizzard. That's not going to happen to us or for any of us if any other scenarios unfold.